This conference will now be recorded.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for taking the time out of your schedule to join us. Hopefully, this will be time well spent. I know that our presenters have some really great content for you. Allow me to introduce myself. I'm Lindsay Kiesler, President and CEO of the Chamber of Catawba County, and it has been our pleasure to co-host this series, the COVID-19 in Your Business series, over the past several months with our partners at the Catawba County Economic Development Corporation, the Small Business Center at CBCC, the Small Business Technology and Development Center, and we're just so grateful for their partnership and for linking arms with us on behalf of the business community, really truly being the front lines in response, along with our partners in local government as well. So I'd be remiss if I didn't also include them. So just a couple housekeeping things. I hear some background noise, so if you wouldn't mind, just for the quality of our recording, if you wouldn't mind placing your speakers on mute if you're not speaking. Also, if you have a question, we welcome those. So anytime throughout the presentation, utilize that chat box feature and type in any questions or comments that you have regarding the content. And at the end, we are going to reserve time for Q&A with the speakers and Nathan Hewitt, who is here. He's I call him the Oz behind the curtain, so to speak, working our technology. But Nathan's also the Director of Existing Industry Services with the Catawba County Economic Development Corporation. He's going to facilitate that Q&A with our speakers. So definitely ask away, and we will be glad to address those at the end of the presentation. I mentioned recording. We are going to be recording this webinar, so you can certainly take notes, but you can also reference the content later. It will be placed on both the Catawba EDC's COVID Business Resource Guide page and also the Chamber of Catawba County, our business resource page on both of our websites. So hopefully we'll have that up by the end of the week. So again, I want to thank you and welcome you to today's session. And this session is titled Open, Safe, and Profitable. So as we are phasing into reopening of our economy, we know there are a lot of things on your mind, right? Business has completely been disrupted. You've had to pivot on a dime and shift the way you provide your products and services to your customers. And as you look to reopen, things are going to look differently, right? At least for the foreseeable future. If not, some aspects of your business could change permanently. And so that's really going to be the topic of discussion today. So first of all, help you ask yourself some big questions regarding reopening. And to ensure that you're going to be profitable, right? So not only are you going to accommodate your employees and your customers safely as you reopen, but I know you also need to earn a livelihood. And so we have two of the subject matter experts on our call today as our presenters who are going to walk us through what are some of those big questions, how do we communicate those to our staff and also to the community, and then finally, how can you manage the cash, or how can you then change or amend your operations to ensure your profitability? So without further ado, I want to introduce both of our presenters, and I know Ron Elmore is going to tee us off here, but I also want to introduce Jeff Newville. So Ron Elmore, he is the Regional Director of the Small Business Technology and Development Center. Here, their office is in Hickory. But they serve a large region, which I'm sure he'll share that. And then Jeff Newville will follow up after Ron. Jeff is the director of the Small Business Center at CBCC. So Ron, I'm going to turn it over to you. Thank you guys very much for your time.
Thank you, Lindsay, and welcome business owners in the Hickory metro area. It's a pleasure to work with this team. Jeff Newville, the Small Business Center, the SBTDC have been partnering in this area to do one thing, and that's help businesses grow and be profitable. But in these massively changing times and with the rollout of the local open and safe initiative rolled out by the chamber, we felt as though, just as Lindsay said, what's on their mind right now, what's on the business owners' minds, that we would kind of walk through that with you. I can speak for the SBTDC that we have on the ground counselors that are ready to come to your offices and assist in any way we can in facilitating your thought process and putting numbers on paper, et cetera. And again, our services are confidential and they're at no charge. You simply just have to reach out to us here in the Hickory office. And it's my pleasure to work through the many years with Jeff Newble and the SBC. So Jeff, you want to introduce SBC?
Yeah, so thank you, Ron. Thank you, Lindsay, and happy to be here today. Small business centers were also funded through a grant from the state of North Carolina. Puts a small business center at each of our community colleges throughout the state of North Carolina. Our mission is to assist people starting businesses as well as assist existing small businesses. We provide confidential business counseling, also free to engage that. We also do many webinars throughout the year on a variety of topics for startups and small businesses. So you can check out our website and we'll put up some contact information at the end of this program. We've also received some additional funding from the state of North Carolina that's allowed us to extend our counseling over the next few months by enlisting lawyers, accountants, and marketing specialists to connect the local businesses. So we've got some funding that we can use to pay for that. So keep us in mind if you need any of those services as well. So happy to be here today, and we'll go ahead and get started.
Great. As we look at the staff that both Jeff and I have with the SBTDC counselors and Jeff's team as well, we put together essentially a sketch here that we're going to dive into in this session of just first things first and looking at this ever-changing climate that we're reopening into. And the first at the top, we'll go down in detail on each of these, but is first of all, is getting a handle on the current condition of your company. We call it the current state. You know, I come from a private equity background, and we would work to always get to what's the current state realistically of where you are. And a lot of that is being driven. We'll drive down into that in some detail by what your industry's doing, et cetera. Then we'll take a good look at the other three major pieces, Jeff and I together, as we look at the great communication is going to be needed, you know, with your customers and your vendors. As Lindsay pointed out, and it's probably most paramount now, is some tools and ideas on managing to cash. If we've had cash for 10, 12 years, perhaps we've not had this tool or discipline that we're going to probably have to manage to now. So we have some tools that we hope will be helpful to you. And then again, what to do with both the employees and the staff, with both partial staff ability to pay. We'll drive down into each one of these in some degree of detail. Let's take a look first at just talking through the current state and the current condition ideas. The key, as we said, is let's take a realistic look, and the counselors and the teams that are represented here on this call, we have the expertise to go in and assist you with the current state of your self-assessment of where you're at. So what's being presented by the chamber today is with Jeff and myself is a group of local counselors and resources that can help you manage and look down on your business in a way that you've been spending years working in it. Now let's look down on it, you know, together. One of the areas that can be helpful, that I'll give you an example here in just a minute, but is to look at what your industry segment is doing. Your industry reports, not only what are they doing in this COVID, how are they opening up, what's your industry association perhaps saying as far as guidelines. But we also have, as a resource, we're funded by the Small Business Administration and also by the university system. So we all have access to these industry reports that can actually compare your financial data versus your peers in the same industry segment, as well as even the size of your company, and even compare it down to the region of the nation, whether it's Southeast, US, et cetera. It can be very helpful as a sanity check as to how are we doing even prior to COVID, and then how do we anticipate, coming out of it. And then, of course, the last thing there, and I'll give you a quick example in just a minute as far as industry segments, but the questions you see there. So how are we going to open? Part-time, closed? Are you running multiple potential scenarios with your financial statements or cash flow, as Jeff will get into in a little bit? I was having this meeting this morning in Hickory with a consulting firm, and what is your actual capacity to deliver, based on this new scenario of employees returning, having success getting their employees returning, how, from an HR perspective, what tools are available to even get them to return so that we're kind of legally offering them the job back, and then making a decision if they are coming back, how much staff will you need to bring back, and so forth. Let me give you a quick example of the industries. I have here, we just received something from for example, the restaurant industry and their associations, a 75-page operations manual on how to open in the COVID world. But there were four areas that I thought would be worthwhile just verbally. 3 Ds, if you're taking any notes, right? Discover what is the operational compliance that's required by CDC, what's being followed in your industry segment, by local government, state government. So 1, discover what's your operational compliance that I have to do. Number 2, determine what precautions, the other D, determine what precautions need to be taken. Number 3, develop standard operating procedures, which may or may not have been in place, but around the special circumstances by which you may be opening. And then number 4, deploy quality and safety procedures. Again, discover, determine, develop, and deploy. There's even a client in our area that has actually built a website called safedistanceproducts.com. What that client's doing, safe-distance-products.com. What is he addressing? They've retooled their company to say what signage even needs to be up in your organization, restrooms, floors, etc. So again, if that's helpful, safe-distance-products.com. So again, this is an area of self-assessment, and then all of this, obviously, it translates down, or like a waterfall, right, into the other things that we're going to talk about, such as communicating with customers, cash flow, et cetera. But starting with this high level, what are we going to do, under what procedures, and how are we going to train and communicate with our employees going forward?
And I think that when Ron and I look at analysis or think about analysis, I guess one of the pitfalls that we want people to avoid is just because we're now in phase 2 of reopen and you're allowed to reopen, should you reopen? And that trying to do some assessment of your customers, of your employees, and the situation is really imperative before you just reopen the doors with making assumptions that things are going to return in a way similar as they were before. So doing that analysis up front before you go too far down the road is important. Go ahead.
Well, needless to say, it's in the area of change at the 100,000 foot level. Needless to say, you've done this before, maybe in your company's life, whether it was 2008, 9/11, et cetera. Massive communication, almost over communication. It has to begin. And what is that communication plan? Any predictions and forecasting that we've done over the past 2 or 3 years may have been a walk in the park for you, because what you were predicting really happened. The economy was rocking and rolling, but now everything from consumer confidence, may be shaken. Therefore, how does that affect my customers? How does it affect my vendors? So again, massive communication with your customers on their new forecasts, how they may ramp up. We've even had many clients now hear from their supply chain of changes in terms. Again, hopefully not you, but we did have a Fortune 100 or a client, local business client that had a customer who's a Fortune 100 company who just decided that instead of paying you in 30 days, we're now going to pay you in 90 days. I mean, just like what? And fortunately, they handled that objection fairly well and got that down to 60 days. But again, it was just expected by this Fortune 100 company that you're going to be able to manage, to that message. So don't assume no communication means good news. We've got to go out as business owners and communicate, with our customers and our vendors and seeing how they're going to perhaps behave going forward. Again, there are things available out there for us, surveys, social media, just observation, talk to as many people as possible. Obviously, you would rank your customers and talk to your top ones first. But again, having a handle on what their feedback is. And then vendors. We've heard just early on some, relatively, you would raise your eyebrow kind of stories of certain vendors telling you, the business owner, that their terms and their ability to deliver is now quite curtailed or quite different. So again, ranking your vendors by importance to you as an industry or as your company, ranked by importance, and get really an understanding of, and as things go, we believe that it's over communication at this point. Even if we're discovering in month 1, month 2, and we made some assumptions that aren't true, keep these communications going, with your vendors, and hopefully this will really improve the ability to succeed.
Yeah, and again, the over communication and just understanding what's going on in your industry, in your marketplace. Some businesses are now reopening, but they have some limitations on capacity in terms of how many people are allowed in stores, allowed in buildings, allowed in restaurants. Just because you're able to reopen, you probably should be assuming that many customers still are a little bit wary about sticking their toe back into the water. So as Ron was saying, whether you use email, text, Facebook surveys, social media, just to get a temperature of your customers to understand where their heads are at. That's going to really help you as you assess what the demand is. And I think it's also safe for us to assume that there are going to be some changes that are going to last for a while. Obviously, if you're in the food business or the restaurant business, you might be able to reopen and have people come inside your place of business, but you may well have found that your pickup business or your delivery business is now going to be a more significant piece of your business on an ongoing basis. So whether it's your own personal experience or looking at other people in your industry, looking at competitors, there's a lot of information that you need to be gleaning and building into your thought process as you reopen.
That's a great point you made there, Jeff. We've got a couple business-to-business large manufacturers that when their method of getting customers is calling on the phone, getting some interest, getting on an airplane, or driving 5 hours to have sales calls, et cetera. We're encouraging them, and I think they're going to start doing it. Zoom has now become, or this video medium has now become massively acceptable, right down to doctors doing analysis, right? Where we're mapping a sales model that says, let's try to qualify our customers through video, et cetera. We've got one client that recently is re-engineering their conference room and putting a camera in the conference room. So they're buying technology so that they can actually show on the screen of their potential prospect their team, their 5-person team, 10-person team, whatever it might be, to work on a project with the client, when normally it would have been a sales rep getting in the car or, et cetera. So again, using the technology that now is being accepted, might be a new way of actually selling to those customers going forward.
And I think we also recognize we're talking this afternoon about reopening in a safe and profitable way, but people have come to me, and I suspect to Ron as well, talking about, is it possible to start a new business at this point in time? And I sort of expect that there will be successful businesses that will start at this point in time because they see changes in the environment that create opportunities for them. So there might be opportunities for you to expand your business to address some of the needs or problems that have come up through our current health issues.
I think we have some examples of stories that might be being posted about how companies in the area have even re-engineered, some of the things that they've done to take advantage of the changes going on.
SafeDistanceProducts.com.
That's right.
All right, moving on.
Yeah, I think the comment you made, Jeff, earlier, given a quick example, and maybe you all who are on the line have lived this already, but there was a group of neighbors that wanted to go eat in South Carolina together as a group. And they said, let's all go, and there was 8 of them. And actually 2 of those couples said, I do not feel comfortable going. And to your point, you wouldn't have thunk it necessarily. But again, being transparent with the customers, being transparent now with employees to ensure, and again, the CDC is pretty clear on this, but again, communicating with your employees, what documents do you need to create if you're a larger company to communicate with them. And then on the business side, it says there, if you over communicate, this is a chance to, are we open? Even Google business listings, as is listed there, I don't know about you, but if many of the clients are not updated the business listing, so I can't really tell if they're open or it's takeout or it's not or it's this, and making sure that everybody knows, that you're open.
Yeah, and in addition to the Google My Business listing, your Facebook page, website, you have down there, emailing customers. You're trying to find reasons to give your customers to re-engage with you. If there are ways that you can provide them with some sort of exclusive content or 10% discount coupon to come back to my place of business or something, can you reserve special times for them to visit your business in a more exclusive type way, and really trying to really just focus on your communication. Don't forget about more traditional PR type modes of whether it be working with our friendly Chamber of Catawba County to assist you in promoting what you've got going on, whether it means putting out some sort of press release to the local paper, which goodness knows they're looking for good news to put in the paper these days. So if you can write and complete sentences, in all likelihood, they're going to be happy to include that sort of information in their paper. So trying to find ways to communicate what you're doing, you can do it in a pretty economical way that way. And as Ron mentioned, also signage is very important, and just to communicate what you've got going on. And as we get toward the end of the program, Lindsay can talk about the Open and Safe program and signage that's available from that as well to help people know in the community what you're doing.
And communicating to your employees, which I saw in this this large restaurants chain opening document is, what are you telling your employees about safety? Are you reconfiguring, I'm making this up, but reconfiguring cubicles, or spacing the furniture, or wiping down? When one of the restaurants that we went to in South Carolina emphasized how often they're wiping down both tables and the menus, which I never would have thought of, et cetera. So that communication to both employees, what are you doing to keep them safe, and the customer?
Well, and does that also introduce some new opportunities for businesses to set themselves apart from their competitors? That I used to go to this restaurant because I loved their pizza, and now I'm going to this restaurant because they've given me the confidence that they're taking the right steps to keep me safe. So how does that translate into other industries? How does that translate into other businesses? Something to be thinking about as you build your reopen plan.
Yeah, exactly. We start to take these kind of decisions and now kind of drop them down. When you take employees and staff, and we all look at our chart of accounts and look at our levels of expense, certainly employee and staff jump off the page as far as our largest expense. And this ability to make some assumptions on the revenue side and then translate that into questions and answer questions around the employee and staff. So this graph here is just a more of a thought process to lead us to a segment about the entity, right? We're trying to please the employees, we're trying to please the customers, but our third leg of this stool, obviously, as business owners, this, and it is the entity. What can the entity really afford? What are some of the options and information for my staff? Unemployment options, temporary, permanent layoff, furloughs, et cetera. Many of you probably already gone through that. But again, on the comeback, we just had a letter that was developed by SHRM, the Human Resource Association. That is a fine letter that could actually say, okay, here's a line in the sand. I'm inviting you back to be an employee that you were at our company. We're looking for a response by this day, and the result of you not answering would mean that you're no longer on this company. So you have to look at this, not only what the entity needs, but how are the employees reacting to this odd time that we're in of getting paid unemployment, and at the same token, the entity needs them to come back. So then it drives us into the ability for the entity to pay, right? All of its other expense and for the staff.
And I'm going to go on just a little bit of a tangent there, because I did see that one person submit a question prior to to our program about struggling to get employees to return to the company because they were getting unemployment benefits, which were pretty generous when they added in the federal benefits, and they didn't really want to come back to work, and this individual had asked about it in regards to securing a PPP loan and how that impacted their ability to get forgiveness. And I've gone through the PPP forgiveness application, not in tremendous detail, but I've gone through it, and I'm sort of looking at Ron for him to chime in at some point in time. But I believe that they have built an exception in that if you make the effort to rehire that person and you can document it in writing, showing that you've tried to rehire that person, that will not count against you in terms of getting back up to your number of employees for forgiveness. Did I say that correctly, Ron?
Well done.
Okay.
Yeah, the best to my knowledge too. So
yeah.
We're both in the same.
Yeah.
But that, therefore, under the word of documentation, that letter that I just kind of hypothetical, it's not even hypothetical now, but these letters of kind of formality of calling back the employee by this date. If I don't hear from you by this date, then this is the next step. Blah blah blah. Is that method of documentation that could help you out?
Right. So It's a little bit down a tangent of, this isn't a PPP conversation, but it is one in which we're all out there trying to get employees back, or trying to figure out how many employees we're going to need. Going out with the assumption that I've got to get all my employees back, that might not be the right assumption that you should be having at this point in time. So we'll sort of move ahead.
An example, though, I already have one manufacturing client that brought back a la PPP, X amount of people, right? From at 60, brought back X amount yesterday. There, because of the orders not coming in about what you're going to, help us walk through here with cash management, they've determined, with their CFO, that we need to actually furlough again based on the cash projections, going on.
Yeah, well, you're trying to figure out what your demand's going to be and how you're going to meet it. So that's our challenge. And it does really come back to cash. I can't remember the first time someone told me that cash is king, and that cliche, but it's really not changed that much. And particularly in a difficult economy and when things get challenging, running out of cash will put you out of business. So really managing your business to manage the cash becomes the highest priority that you should be considering as you go forward. I'm a refugee of the hosiery industry, sock manufacturing locally here. So we went through some challenging times where we were looking at our cash flow projections on a weekly basis, trying to figure out which bills we were going to pay which week, what sort of receipts we would be getting each week, and could we be making our payroll? We had some hairy times at certain points in our industry. When you're dealing with an economy like this, that's something to be thinking about for many businesses. So whether you use your historical information from your banks, you're really trying to think of timing of when money is coming in and when money is going out. And Ron and I have access to tools that we can assist you with doing this with, primarily spreadsheet based, where we can play some what if games to say, if this is where your sales was before, let's play some games to say, what if it decreases by a certain percentage, and how does that impact the money coming in, and what steps can we be taking to reduce expenses to manage that, so that you've got enough cash to get you through challenging times and tight situations. Information that you need to be thinking about and asking yourself is really assessing how much cash are we starting with, what's on hand, are there other ways to secure additional monies, whether it be a PPP loan or other ways to inject cash into your business. Your receivables, can we be confident that they're going to be coming in at the same time? As Ron mentioned, from a customer basis, there's obviously a trickle down situation here, and that if you've got customers that are having challenges, are they going to be able to pay you in 30 days when they had been paying you in a traditional way, or are they going to be looking for a way to extend their terms, and maybe that cash isn't coming in as quickly? Likewise, you have some opportunities to go to some of your vendors and extend your terms. Unfortunately, I've been in a similar situation that Ron mentioned, where I got one of those dear vendor letters saying, by the way, next month we're changing our payment terms from 30 days to 60 days. It wasn't, let's discuss it. It's like, here it is. And if you're a large Fortune 100 vendor, you might be able to get away with it. Doesn't make it right or make anybody feel good about it.
I may add to that. We've got one client that got that, and they rehearsed the script of going back to that Fortune 100 company, and lo and behold, got paid within the normal hours. But again, they rehearsed it, they talked it through the accounting, who's going to make the call, escalated it within the vendor, right? And all this takes time, but when you're managing to cash at this level, I think one other comment on cash. Another client, business owner, and probably you guys out there, you've got subscriptions that you may be paying for that you frankly, when you had cash, you weren't worried about it, but they went through and examined everything that was auto pay, and started stopping, auto pays, so that they would at least make a decision on when to pay, right?
Probably a good idea for our personal budgets as well. So something to think about. I know I've got plenty of those out there. And I don't think
you wouldn't want to see them on one page.
No, and we're probably all subscribing to way too many online video services now since we've been hunkered down as well. But again, timing of when your money is going out, when it's coming in, borrowing ability, the PPP loans have been great. If you have not secured one, as of right now, they're still open till the end of the month, but there appears to be legislation floating around in Washington that could extend that till the end of the year. So there is still funding out there for PPP loans. And I believe that the North Carolina COVID Recovery Fund still has some money available in it as well. Obviously, the benefit of the PPP loan is that much of it can be forgiven if you use it within 8 weeks and you're using it for payroll and specific overhead expenses. You're not going to get much of a better deal on it than that, and whatever's left over and not forgiven turns into a 1% term loan. And it sounds like that term, which right now is 2 years, might be extended to 5 years.
Not passed yet, but
not passed
pending
yet.
legislation.
Yeah, that's out there. So, and we'll all be keeping people abreast of that once it does get signed into law. Hoping it does get signed into law because it would benefit many of our clients there.
Okay.
So, one model that the SBTDC is used and shared with our small business centers, and this is a spreadsheet, and obviously if you read about putting presentations together, you're probably not supposed to put stuff like this on a presentation. It's your people's eyes start to bleed a little bit, but just to give you some sense of the timing, and we're going to try to pull up a little bit of an example here.
And this is cash management, right? So this exercise really has to be reconciled with your bank statements historically to get some sort of trend that you could plug in, historically, that then you can build on your projections, saying that with the following assumptions happening, we'll adjust what we should expect cash to come in. So this is cash in and cash out, keeping track of the existing cash. So Jeff?
So we pulled up just sort of an example type spreadsheet here that we would, there are simpler ones out there. There are much more complicated ones out there. It really is going to depend upon your business and understanding your business on how we might tailor or customize this for you, or how you might want to do it yourself. But basically it's looking at a beginning bank balance, and in this situation, the previous slide had it broken out by month. Personally, in a challenging economy, I would urge you to look at it more on a weekly basis in terms of what you think is coming in and what you have going out. And it's like a traditional bank account. Here's how much I have at the beginning of the period, June 3rd, and it's broken out by weekly buckets. The week of 6/3, the week of 6/10, the week of 6/17, and we have it going out for 8 weeks, just to sort of look at what our bank balance is. You can go out and say, well, last year, here are sort of the sales numbers that we had. We did this for my dream business when I retired, Jeff's Beach Equipment and Grill, where I'll be at the beach in a cool bar and grill setting, and I'll be selling you some souvenirs as well as cheeseburgers and cold beer. We all dream about.
Beer is good. They're good.
The beer is good, particularly cold. come out with some basic product categories that I sell: beach products, food service, and sort of a mix of how my products are sold. 50% food, 20% product, 30% beer, and got some profit margins down here. So here's my sales coming in. Here's my cost of goods. I've got a management draw here. I've been paying myself $500 a week. And if I have money left over at the end of the year, that's nice as well. But I like to bring in a little each week just to make it worth my while. I've got my overhead expenses down here where I've got monthly rent of $1,800 that I have to pay. I've been paying 4 employees at $15 an hour for 40 hours a week. Might have some maintenance. I put in cleaning supplies down here just because I'm figuring I'm going to have that. And so basically it's going to tell me that when all is said and done, with the money I've got coming in, money I've got going out, it'll tell me what I've got, my net cash after all is said and done, and bring me back up to next week where my sales didn't support it. But if you look over the course of time based on my sales, and they always get a lot better over the week of July 4th because everyone's down at the beach drinking my beer and eating my food, my bank account is looking pretty good as I go forward.
And the discipline I would recommend too, Jeff, is that's a projection, is to add a column on actuals.
Right. And
you'll begin to get smarter with your projections.
No doubt, no doubt. So this is maybe how my business had worked traditionally, but now I might be working under some capacity issues, and I might be concerned that just because of health reasons, not as many people are going to go to the beach. So I might have another scenario down here where I've cut my sales estimates in half to say, all right, what happens if bad things happen, people don't come back? And you can sort of see the really bad impact that might have to my bank statement, my balance sheet, which is up here, up at the top. And by early July, instead of having $4,000 in the bank, now I've got negative $3,000 in the bank. And that doesn't seem to be improving dramatically as I go based on reduced demand. But it gives you some opportunity to say what happens, what are the things that I can impact? If this is a worst case scenario, and maybe it's not worst case scenario, maybe it's just a really bad scenario, it could get worse. Hopefully it will be better, but which of these expenses do I have the ability to impact? Can I go into my management draw and say, all right, instead of taking out $500 a week, I'm only going to take out $250 and put that into my numbers and see how that improves my cash flow position. If I'm only going to be operating at 50% capacity, do I still need 4 employees? Maybe I can get by with 3 employees. So I change my 4 to 3 and see how that does. And that makes some pretty significant improvements. So there are ways that you can be looking at this and playing around with a model like this. Doesn't have to be this specific model. Ron and I have probably seen many of them. This is one that's pretty user-friendly that we can help you set up, or you can do it yourself. We're here to assist and manage your way through it.
Yeah, and the key is manage your way through it. It's applying resources that you probably didn't apply before when things were rocking, right? I'm going to usually assume that. So this is some percent of somebody's time that is actually reconciling bank statements, doing these projections, doing advisory meetings on what do we do going forward. So it's a great tool.
So yeah, it takes some rolling up of your sleeves and the willingness to get into the numbers and look at some of your historical information and yeah, when you get into a critical cash flow period, you also recognize there really are no expenses that you really can just assume that you can't look at. And the SBTDC also has another handy piece of information that we'll sort of bring up on our screen here, and we can share for you. It's just sort of a checklist of things that you can look at for managing in times of difficult finances. And ways that you can be looking to improve your cash position and control your costs. I don't know if there's certain ones that Ron, that you want to highlight or emphasize.
I think at this point, Jeff, for the audience, is to know that this is a tool that the SBTDC counselors have. Obviously share it with the Small Business Center, but again, a handy checklist. We can send this out to everyone that's registered for this webinar. At the same token, know that these are the kinds of tools that would have you look down even further detail right around is there things you want to reward your staff on to manage the costs, things where you may want to start to micro measure any promotional activities. All right, we're going to spend money in marketing, but are we getting an ROI, on that expense? Inventory is a checklist, right? Is any slow moving inventory? What are the options to do to generate cash? So in any case, this is a tool available we'll get it out to all of you, and know that these are the kinds of tools that, our consultants can use in your office.
So we're gonna go back to our PowerPoint, and we're gonna hope that Lindsay Kiesler is still with us, and sort of go back towards open and safe, which we're talking about ways in which you should be looking at your business, but we're also fortunate that the chamber has been coming up with a guide and ways that you can be promoting it to the community. So that's not the slide. There we go. Lindsay, are you out there?
I'm here. Thank you, Jeff and Ron. Great information, and I appreciate you teeing me up to talk about the open and safe commitment. So, Ron, the 4 Ds really stood out to me that you mentioned that were released through one of the restaurant associations, and I'm going to just briefly go over them because I think it's a perfect why as to why we're encouraging businesses to make this open and safe commitment. Discover, determine, develop, and deploy. So understanding what are your operational compliance standards given by the government. What are some things that are nice to do? What are some things you need to do? Determine what precautions you need to take to protect your customers, but also your employees. Developing a standard of procedures. So this is where that making a plan is so critical before you reopen, and then finally deploying those procedures. So as we were looking at identifying how we can jumpstart our local economy, we started with identifying what are the key barriers that we needed to address as a business community in order to expedite recovery for our community. One that kept coming up was this whole idea that Jeff has touched on a couple of times during this call, is the idea of customers, their comfort level, right? Their fear and their confidence in your ability to protect their health and well-being. So the whole idea of you can be open, but are your customers ready to take a risk, to risk their public or their personal health and well-being to come and patronize and spend their dollars in your business? The other aspect is the idea of going above and beyond and showing your customers and your employees, your greatest asset, your employees, that you truly care about them, that you're prioritizing their health and well-being. As I mentioned, this whole discover, there are some things that the government, the CDC, the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services, they are in the executive orders that are spelled out that are requirements for your particular industry. You need to know what those are, but then also there's some guidance that they put out there, and guidance is simply exactly what it sounds like. It is simply suggestions and a conversation starter or a list of best practices of how you can be as safe as possible. So, how I look at it as most of these companies that are wanting to open safely, you're going above and beyond to implement procedures and protocol in order to prioritize the health and well-being of your customers and your employees. That goes a long way. like Jeff mentioned, if I have a choice between one business that, just opened their doors, didn't really change anything to protect me, and a business down the street that is advertising that they are open and safe, that they have changed their procedures to protect me, I'm going to pick the latter because I feel that they have my interest first and foremost. And finally, the idea of reducing fear for employees. So in addition to other barriers, as I've already been mentioned, with bringing employees back to work through competing with unemployment insurance benefits, employees also some could be afraid or uncomfortable. And so putting these measurements into place in order to protect them and then reinforce and tell that story that you are indeed protecting them is so key. So this is what all of those things is where Open and Safe was really inspired. And so the Chamber, in support of many different organizations, including those that are represented on this call, and also the Hickory Downtown Development Association and the Newton Downtown Development Association, came together and we created this brand that's unique to our region. And so the Open and Safe commitment can be found on the Chamber's website, catawbachamber.org/open-and-safe. So I encourage you to go there. And there are 3 parts to this. The first part is that understanding compliance, understanding guidance. So we have created what we call the Open and Safe Playbook that can be downloaded directly from that site. So again, catawbachamber.org/open-and-safe. We'll throw that in the chat as well for you to reference. This is a 60-page playbook that is specific to each industry that is most represented across Catawba County, across our 4-county region. So I encourage you to check that out if you haven't already understood various guidance for safe reopening. And then second is this whole making this public statement or making the Open and Safe pledge. We have it listed there. Basically, you are vowing to change your procedures in a way that's applicable to you, that would protect your employees first and also your customers. You sign that digitally through our website. It's free to all businesses to do this. And right now we have over 110 businesses in just a little over a week that we've released this. So we're extremely inspired by those that have already taken this pledge. We encourage you to do the same. And then finally, the piece is telling the story, right? You can make the pledge. Everybody that makes the pledge receives a digital poster you can display prominently in your business. But we also have other materials, and you may have seen them around town. We have yard signs. We have vinyl decals. We also have stickers that you can opt to purchase at cost to then, again, continue to reinforce the idea that you're protecting their health and well-being or prioritizing their health and well-being. So again, catawbachamber.org/open-and-safe. I encourage you to make this commitment. Again, regardless if you have walk-in traffic, we have all types of industry sectors and business sizes that are represented so far in the list. Go check out the companies that you'll be in good company with, and I hope that you'll take us up on this challenge. So again, guys, I want to thank you. Do you have any closing remarks? If not, I'll turn it over to Nathan for some Q&A.
I think we're just happy to share information with folks today, and Ron and I are available to assist, as I know that you are, and there's our contact information out there, so please reach out to us and let us know how we can help.
Great. Open to questions. Can help.
So at this time, if you do have a question, feel free to put that in the chat box, and we'll be happy to answer that. If not, if you think of something later, you can always email myself or Nathan Hewitt at the Catawba EDC, and we'll be happy to get those answered for you. We have not received any so far. I do want to, I'll ask a question. So Ron and Jeff, understanding that all of the content covered today is it depends on your business, your situation. In order for them to sort of do a deep dive and customize their plan, help them answer their big questions. I wanted to see if you can one more time encourage or tell them how to engage with you after this call.
So you can contact me at my email address there, or give me a call. If you go to sbc.cvcc.edu, you'll get to our website, and we've got a request for counseling form that you can fill out online, and we'll get back up with you, and happy to assist in any way that we can.
And again, the SBTDC office here in Hickory, you can go to our website at www.sbtdc.org/offices, and you'll get right to, you'll see the list of counties, and click on that, or you can email me as you see on the screen, or call directly to our office. And we look forward to getting involved in your company in any way. There's a confidentiality agreement when you request counseling, so everything is confidential and at no charge. So our team is here, ready to serve you in any way we can.
Well, hearing no other questions in the chat box, I want to again thank you. First of all, thank you to all of our presenters, Ron and Jeff. Appreciate your time. I want to thank the other partners as well, Catawba County Economic Development Corporation, and also the Small Business Center at CVCC and the SBTDC for helping put this series together. Thank you to all those that have called in. This session was recorded, and so we will make that recording available on our website, hopefully by the end of day tomorrow. So again, thank you for your time, and we will sign off.